Okay, hi again. It's Mr. Ash, and I'm going to be doing factorising. The full title, I suppose, would be Factorising Linear Expressions, which basically, well, I say linear. There will be some parts where there's going to be quadratic, but I'm basically going to end up with a single bracket. These are all linear, and this here is a quadratic because it's got an x squared as its biggest power, but at the moment we're just going to look at when it's going to become a single bracket, which this one does, and so do the others. Okay, right, so let's look at the first two. 3x plus 15. Now, when you're factorising, it would actually say, factorise 3x plus 15, and all of these will have factorised just before it. Factorise 3x plus 15, factorise x plus 8x plus 12, and so on. Factorise means find a factor and take it out, sort of thing. So what is a factor of 3x and 15? What goes into 3x and into 15? Well, let's look at the numbers, 3 and 15. Both of them have the number 3 in. So I'm going to take the 3 and put it outside some brackets. And I'm basically going to do the opposite to expand. I'm going to think, what do I times 3 by to get, well, first of all, this one. 3 times x would make 3x. Okay. Now, some of you might say, well, what do you times that by? That's just doing 3x divided by 3. Yeah, that's exactly right. You're basically dividing by this thing out here. So 3x divided by 3 is just x. Then we're doing 3 times what makes positive 15. And of course that is positive 5. 3 times 5 is 15. Now you might recognise that. Looks a bit similar. The expanding brackets lesson. Look here, we expanded. I think it should, in theory, have a bit of an expand there in the question if you had like a proper question on it. Expand that, expand this, you get this. And if we look at what we've just done the exact opposite. We have factorised the 3x plus 15, which was the answer to the last question, and the answer is the question. So factorising and expanding is basically the opposite. Okay, you put it back into something. You put it back into something with brackets with factorising. Okay, let's move on then. So 8x and 12. Some of you might look at that and think, right, what's a factor of 8 and 12? 2. 2 is a factor. It's not the biggest, so it's not going to get you the perfect answer that you need. Okay. Sometimes they say factorise fully, so you realise you've got to get that. Sometimes they'll just say factorise, but they'll still expect you to do it as far as you can. So I'm going to do it 2 ways for you, just quickly. If you see that both of them in 4s, brilliant, great news. You take the 4 out, you divide both of them by 4, 2x, 12 divided by 4, 3, and there we go, boom, done. But what if you didn't see that? What if you didn't see it straight away? Well, you could spend a bit longer, double check, but even then, you might just miss something. So let's have a look at what if you just thought, oh, they're both in the 2s. Okay, so I'm going to take the 2 outside, and I'm going to divide both those things by 2. So that's 8x divided by 2 is 4x. 12 divided by 2 is 6. And I'm thinking, yeah, brilliant, got my answer. However, I'm going to do a quick check. Can I factorise this bit any further? And of course, 4x and 6 are both in the 2s, so I could divide it by another 2. So you could sort of do it quite a complicated way of thinking, right, divide them both by 2, make that 2 times as big, which gives you 4. Divide that by 2, divide that by 2. And that gets quite confusing. What I would do, I mean, it gets you the answer, but what I would do, I mean, just to be clear, I've times that by 2 and then I divided both of those by 2 to sort of balance it out. What I would do is I'd leave that. I would just look at that and think, hang on, I could have gone for a bigger factor. Gone back to this, thought, oh, I see, it's in the 4s as well, and then done it. So this is your test to see, could it have been bigger? Right, next one. Again, it's in the 2s, it's in the 3s, it's in the 1s. That doesn't really help us at all. No point putting the 1 on the outside of that. But it's in the 6s, and that's the one we're after. So I'm going to divide. I'm going to put the 6 on the outside. I'm going to divide that by 6. 12x divided by 6 is 2x. Minus 18 divided by 6 is minus 3. This one, 3 and 5. Now, 3 and 5, the only thing they're both in is the 1s, so that's not going to help us. But x squared and x. They're both in the x's. So I'm going to take the x out. I'm going to divide that by x. Well, the 3 stays as it is. And x squared divided by x, if you remember from a previous lesson, x times x is x squared. So if I did x squared divided by x, I'd go back to the x. So that's just going to be x. And then 5x divided by x, well, the plus 5 is going to stay as it is. And x divided by x just cancels it out because technically it's 1, and 5 times 1 is just 5. So we can just leave that as it is. Question 5, x squared plus xy. X is in both of those as well. Divide that by x is x, as you know. Xy divided by x, well, the x goes. So you're just left with y. And then a really quite tricky one at the bottom here. This one's an extension question. Factorise this where you've got 6 and 10 first of all, both in the 2's. So I'm going to write 2 on the outside of the brackets. But wait, there's more. You've also got that x is in both. But not only x, if you imagine you've got x to the 4, which is x times x times x times x. I'm going to circle the x's so it's clear which ones are the x's and which ones are the times. If you've also got x cubed on the right there, that's x times x times x. Don't worry, this is a real extension question, so if you're starting to struggle with this, don't panic too much about it. Then you've actually got x, another x, and a third x in both. You don't have a fourth x in both because you only have a fourth x in that one. But you've actually got x cubed in both of them, so I'm going to take x cubed out as well. So then I'm going to put my brackets. I'm going to divide this by 2x cubed, or 6 divided by 2 is 3. And x to the 4 divided by x cubed is just x to the 1, or just x. And then I've got a minus. 10 divided by 2 is 5. X cubed divided by x cubed just vanishes, and you've just left with that y there, so it's minus 5y. Okay, and that's it. So let's do some practice questions. I reckon, can we get them all in? Yes, I reckon so. So the whole sheet, okay, is there. Pause it and have a go, and then hopefully now you've unpaused it, and let's have a go at this sheet. I'm going to go through. I will go quicker than I have been, because hopefully you got the hang of it now. Right, 6 and 10, both in the 2's. Divide them both by 2, 3x plus 5. This one here, both in the 4's. Divide them both by 4, 2x plus 3. This one here, both in the 5's. Take the 5 out, divide them both by 5. Minus 3. Over here, trickier one, both in the 2's, but also both in the 4's. So we need to go for the biggest one, of course. Take the 4. Divide by 4, 6x. Divide minus 20 by 4, minus 5. Okay, let's move down. Question 5. Both in the 6's. Divide that by 6, 5. Divide that by 6, minus x. On the right there. Question 6. 4 and 9, nothing to do with that. Nothing that goes into both of them but 1. But x squared and x, both have x in. Divide them both by x, well that becomes 4x. And that becomes 9. Both in the x's again, divide them both by x. X plus 8. This one here, but 3, and 3 goes into 3 and 12. X goes into x squared and x. I'm actually going to take 3x out there. I'm going to do 3 divided by 3, which is 1. Now, I'm going to write 1 in for now, because I might need it, but I'll show you what we'll do with it in a minute, if we don't need it. And then x squared divided by x is just x, and I'll get to that in a minute. And then 12 divided by 3 is plus 4, and x divided by x cancels, so we leave it at that. Now, in an exam, you'll get the mark there, but you might realise, oh, actually, 1x, it's easier just to write x. And that's it. Number 9. Oh, try not to drop my phone. Number 9. Both in the 3's. Now, you might notice, hang on, there's an x squared there. And a lot of people then think, oh, there must be an x here then. There's no x over there. So there's not x in both of these things. So we don't do any more than just take the 3 out. Divide both by 3. 2x squared. Nearly wrote 3x squared there. Okay, so if I do make a mistake, by the way, just let me know. Because it can happen even to the best of us. 9 divided by 3 plus 3. Over on the right there, question 10. 4 and no number over there. I mean, in theory, a hidden 1, but nothing goes into 1 and 4 apart from 1. But there is an x on both, so I'm going to take the x out. I'm going to do that divided by x, which is 4x. And I'm going to do xy divided by x, which is y. Okay, question 11. So make sure we get the whole 11 and 12 in there. These extension questions, quite nasty. 7 and 10, nothing goes into 7 and 10, but x squared and x to the 4, x squared goes into both of those. And then I'm going to divide both of those by x squared, 10 to the x squared, because x to the 4 divided by x squared. You had 4 times together. You get rid of 2 of them by dividing by x squared, so you're left with 2 still, so x squared. You've still got that y as well. And then 7x squared divided by x squared is just 7. Over here, the hardest question on this video, you have got a 12 and you've got an 8. So I'm going to divide, they're both in the 4s. I've got an x cubed and I've got an x squared. So x squared is actually in x cubed. So we can put x squared there. It's basically the lowest of the 2 powers that you always use if you want a little bit of a trick as well. And then you've got y to the 4 and y. And so y is in both of them. And now I open my brackets. I've got all that that's got to now be, I've got to divide this by that and this by that. 12 divided by 4 is 3. X cubed divided by x squared just leaves us with 1x, because I had 3 and I've divided by 2, so it's got rid of 2 of those. It doesn't work like numbers. We do 3 divided by 2 and get 1.5. When you're doing powers, you've got basically you've got 3 of them, and then you divide by 2 of them. Actually just cancels them out, because if you think times x and then divided by an x would cancel out, and then again x times x divided by x will cancel out, so you're just left with 1 of them. Y to the 4, for the same reason, if you divide by y, you've got rid of 1 of those y's, so it's y cubed. And I'm going to put a plus, because 8 divided by 4, 2. X squared divided by x squared cancels out. Y divided by y cancels out. So that's it. There's nothing more to fill in there. I mean, obviously, you want your answer without lines through it. So I'm just going to quickly rewrite that. 3xy cubed plus 2. And then there's no gap there as well, so it looks a bit prettier. All right. So that was the factorising lesson. I hope you did well with that. Any questions, please do comment on the homework. Bye.